Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Recipe with Dr. Stepheny Finnie. It is my hope that through each segment, you will receive ingredients to live your best life. One seasoning I'm personally passionate about is in the area of health and wellness. In fact, I host an Instagram live entitled Do You Know What's in Your Feminine Care? But I will speak more about this at the end of the show. Today's special guest is a licensed medical health clinician and CEO of Community Outreach Incorporated. Welcome, Mr. Herman McLean, to The Recipe. Hello, Mr. McLean. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Dr. Finnie?
I am great. Please take some time and tell us more about who you are, what you do, and why.
Okay. Well, my name is Herman McLean, as you mentioned already. I'm a licensed mental health clinician, and I'm also the CEO of a nonprofit called Innovative Community Outreach. It's aimed at generating change within systemic families, highlighting mental health and mental wellness. I'm also a host of a podcast called Free Game, and it's also aimed at kind of bridging the gap between relationships, the communications between men and women, and how we view perspective on relationships. So that's two of my main passions, but there's much more to me, and I guess we'll get to that and how I think further along in the interview.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. So you are a licensed medical health clinician. And for those that don't know, what does that mean? Please explain.
A licensed mental health clinician goes by many names: therapist, a psychotherapist, a relationship coach, a life coach, but more so it's a certification. So it's a lot of schooling, a lot of education to, sorry for the lack of a better way of saying it, but learning how to listen. It's a lot of schooling to learn how to ask the right questions, and allowing someone the space and opportunity to be who they are, and providing unconditional regard to helping them develop who they want to become.
Okay. Thank you very much for explaining. You're also a doctoral student. Do you mind providing details on your education? Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I first started out as a mental health clinician, which is more specialized for the individual. But as I got in the field, I realized that the greatest change would come from making an impact in the family system. So as I developed and started to grow and learn about mental health, mental wellness, how to educate people and what change needs to happen, and from my perspective, I understood that the biggest change would have to come from a systemic frame of mind, right? So my education transgressed from a master's of mental health counseling to a doctoral program, which the difference is now from an individualized standpoint, you're trying to treat the individual, but systemic, you know that the individual, and from my experience, if you treat the individual, it only lasts for a short amount of time, because ultimately the person goes back to their system. So if their system is messed up, the chances of success wouldn't be as great as if you made a dynamic impact to the system. So that kind of took my education to that level and opened my eyes to some of the things in the way that we as people of color, but just people in general, need to look and break generational curses for change ultimately to be happen.
Okay. Thank you. Now, what is Community Outreach Incorporated?
So yeah, Innovative Community Outreach is a nonprofit, my second nonprofit that I've ever created, but it's my baby. It's a nonprofit organization that provides psychosocial rehabilitation for kids and adults. We provide individual therapy, we provide family therapy, we provide case management. So this is an opportunity for us again. As I mentioned before, the biggest success rate for change is making a dynamic impact to the family system, in my eyes, right? If I change some of the bad habits, or not if I change, let me take that back, but if I become a catalyst for change and assist those who want to change and help them change to kind of go from unhealthy generational habits that we all come into consideration as normalized behavior. If we make a dynamic impact to some of those areas, hopefully we can change as a people as a whole towards a better way of being. So that's what innovative community outreach is trying to get the services and tools accessible to the community so that they can choose what they want to do, but at least they have it.
Okay. So access. I think that's a key issue is access as well, because a lot of times either we find out late about the programs and the things that are out there for us, or once we find out, we don't have access. So,
Right. Right.
Now, what is hip hop therapy?
Oh, great question. Thank you for that, Dr. Finnie. But so hip hop therapy was another dynamic approach that I've created along with my former business partner. But it was a tool to generate the conversation with kids in high school, right? And we used hip hop music to be a catalyst to talk about those issues that they do on a regular basis experience, but they can't identify what it is that they're experiencing, right? So case in point, we had a presentation and we went to a high school, and one of the kids, after we did our presentation, one of the kids was like, wow, man, I was thinking about killing myself. It's like, wow, you was thinking about killing yourself? Like, wow, that's crazy. Like, why would you do that? Like, what? See, man, I never knew I could express myself. So that put me back to the drawing board, and I said, okay, look, let me look at some of the statistics. Let me figure this thing out, and let me create a way in which we can start that dialogue with kids, because I knew that they wanted to talk, but they didn't have the platform to talk or speak or express themselves, right? So I looked at some of the data, and I found out that, well, I knew, but the supporting data says that over 40%, Dr. Finnie, of high school students die as a result of suicide and homicide, right? So I said, well, wait, they're singing a lot of the stuff in the music about kill, 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 about drug use, about, disrespecting women, disrespecting themselves, falling into the stereotype that the music says that they have to be, right, to be cool or to be accepted. And I said, let me use the same music to generate that subconscious thoughts, to bring it to the forefront, to start the conversation about what they're singing, what they identify with, and be curious as to, like, what is it that you're really talking about? Like, do you understand what it is? So even though they're rapping it, and I'm sorry to make a long story short.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. So even things like anxiety or depression, right? These kids feel it, but they don't know how to identify it or put a label on it. And what I did was I created a way where hip hop music starts that conversation with these kids based on the music and the lyrics and the content that's already in there. So they gravitate to the music already. So why not be in a curious nature as to, okay, you know what this is, right? You know what coping skills are, right? And it starts an entire explosion of a conversation of curiosity. And then these kids have an ability to express themselves back from what they heard, what they learned, and how they can provide advice to those younger than them coming forth, right? So it's like almost like a legacy, a legacy type of activity where the kids create, but it also paves the way for the kids coming up behind them.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that because, people don't pay attention to the things that they listen to a lot of times. But, when you
Right.
listen to things enough, it can become embedded. And so that's good that you've taken that approach and that they also, as I said earlier, now have an outlet to express themselves because the key a lot of times is access and the ability to know about that access to that medium, and you've provided that. So that's awesome, especially for our
Yeah.
youth, because I was in a meeting for my full-time job and it was just a Teams meeting. So, we're
Mhm.
listening in, but we can see the slides, and we have a area called Slido, and that's where people can type in notes. And someone just types in the chat. We were talking about our employee assistance program and some things that
Mhm.
were going on with that, and how people don't know a lot about what it does. They're trying to find resources and so on and so forth. And one person said, yes, I almost killed myself back in January, February, because I was
Mhm.
looking for such and such resource. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And it threw me
Mhm.
back. But then I typed in the chat because nobody said anything. And I was like, is anybody seeing this? So I said, you know,
Mhm.
to the person who said, da da da, I quote, this is Dr. Stepheny Finnie. Know that you're not alone. Please reach out to me at this number. And I started getting all of these, likes, but I was like, we need to reach out to that person. We need to, we can't just see that on the screen where someone said, and they were
Mhm.
serious, obviously. I mean, for them to say something like that in a chat for everybody to see, I was like, this has to be addressed. We can't just leave it at, oh, that's in the chat and ignore it. Something has to be done about that. We need to take action, do
And a
something.
lot of and a lot of and a lot of the times, Dr. Finney, it does get ignored because we like to push it up under the rug, and it's sad to say, but people are afraid to go get help because of the label associated with the type of help that they need, right? So even in that, for someone to go to that extent, that really means that either they're really hurt or they really want to be heard. And
Hmm.
the likelihood of somebody reaching out to see if that person's okay or not okay is, sad to say, but slim to none. But those are the times that we as a people need to step up and be accountable for our friends, people that we care for, even our viewers, right? The people that partake in this production, um, to reach out and see, if we could do anything, if or just be there, because depression is real, and it's real. It's a really big issue that we're dealing with right today, especially with people coming back out of pandemic, right?
Yes.
So I have a lot of clients that are having a difficult time adjusting going back,
Hmm.
right? Just being locked down for a while and having a difficult time going back because now they don't know what to do, unmotivated, right? Those
Hmm.
are signs of depression. And that's a big thing that we're dealing with nowadays. So,
Well, it's I understand that. And then there's also a piece where before, we had this connectedness at work, even if it was,
mhm,
oh, I see this person at the water cooler and we talk about our kids for a minute or something like that. Maybe you
mhm,
don't interact with people, all day, every day when you were in your cubicle or in your office. But when COVID hit and a lot of people started either, working from home, I know for myself, it's been full time working from home ever since February of 2020. And,
mhm,
now people are like, well, I want to go back, but I kind of don't want to go back. And then it's like, so what happens when I do go back? Because, is anybody else going to be there? And then even with that, is it worth it to go back? Because, you know, I don't know if anybody else will be there and the interaction. And so people are seeking to be connected. And we're trying to use all the resources that we can, whether it's, Microsoft Teams platform, Zoom, and that's great, but there's still that face-to-face connection that's missing. And, people need that, especially children. Like, imagine our children being out of school all that time, and then they have to get back into try to integrate. I'm sure that can be a concern as well as children come back together from a mental standpoint.
Absolutely. And what I alluded to before, people coming back from pandemic, especially the clients, and I'm not trying to out anybody, but because ethical stuff, but but the common denominator is a lot of people just don't know how to be anymore. They're so uncertain of how to interact based on all the restrictions and guidelines, the fear, the anxiety, all those emotions that you had bottled up, and now you're stuck inside, trapped with your thoughts. Sometimes they can get negative, and then you transition back into what is supposed to be normalcy, but you don't really know if it's normalcy or not. So you don't know how to be because you changed, and now you're so over analytical. So totally, Dr. Finnie, like that's basically, we need it.
Yeah.
And it's been lost for such a long time that people don't know how to be anymore. But we need to slowly and surely, and with a kind heart and grace, try to get people back acclimated to being around one another again. And I know I'm from Miami, so we have had a lot of shooting since this pandemic has been lifted. Like, the restrictions have been lifted. And it just brings me to understand or think about we just got off a restriction. Why are so many people acting so out of order? Right? Like, why are so many people so agitated? And we just came out from being locked up. I would assume that everybody would be happy to be outside, to do activities again. But we've been seeing a surplus of domestic violence and club shootings as of recent. And it just brings me to understand that people don't know how to be around people anymore. And I think we've relied on social media, these platforms to interact, that the importance of being around people physically, it was taken for granted. And I think it's kind of like not as important as it was before. But to me, I think that's such an important interaction, is to having an emotional connectedness to someone, to knowing what life is by looking at someone, not just through a platform or a screen. But I do love looking at you guys and seeing you, Dr. Finnie, but it's nothing like a person-to-person interaction.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go back to some questions that came in the chat. That one's there, but I'm going to address that here in a minute. This is one that says, there's a popular song that says repeatedly, "All my friends are dead." That song really concerned me because my kids were singing it without realizing what they are repeating over and over. So, and then the question that we have on the screen. Oh, go ahead. If you want to address that, go right ahead.
Absolutely. So that song, I believe, is from XX Extension, and we use that in some of our hip hop therapy as creating that dialogue. So okay. So a lot of parents shy away from topics like suicide because they don't really know how to address it.
Yeah.
But even in just being real and say, I don't know how to address it, goes a long way with just a humanness and a realness and a connection, right? So, and this is just a little personal opinion, but kids are way emotionally advanced, more so now than I was 100 years ago, right? And what my interactions with kids, what they value the most are realness and understanding, right? It's understanding that I don't have all the answers, but if I don't have the answer, I can help you figure it out, or we'll figure it out together, right?
Yeah.
Most interactions with kids are parents telling them what to do, not sitting and understanding one another to a deeper emotional level. And I think that's what's missing now, because we have such isolated lifestyles within a household, where you might have parents in a share in a very, I guess, common, with a man, woman, and two kids and a dog. But in this situation, the kids might be in their own room on their own tablets. The parents might be doing their own thing. Eating family dinner at the table is a lost art. Not too many people, not too many families do anymore.
Yes. Yes.
So,
yes, go ahead.
So, I got lost in the point, but that is a song that we use as a connection to make the conversation with the kids. So even the curiosity of they're singing the song, but sometimes they don't associate the song with the emotion or feeling. And that's an opportunity for parents to step in and clarify, because they do experience these feelings, but they don't know how to make sense of it. And even these songs offer opportunities all the time to make sense. Like, they use bees and bees all the time. And if you catch your son or daughter using the word be, it's an opportunity for you to step in and say, okay, well, do you think all women are bees? Am I a bee? Are you a bee? Do you think your auntie's a bee? And then it starts to, the mind starts to think and work. Now, okay, well, no, I'm not a bee. You're not a bee. Grandma's not a bee. Auntie's not a bee. So why? And that, making those connections are essential to creating healthy young beings. So I was long-winded. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I like the term healthy young being.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, this is a great time to take a quick break, but we will be right back, and we'll also answer that other question that was in the chat. We will address that when we come back, but we'll be right back with licensed mental health clinician and CEO of Community Outreach Incorporated, Mr. Herman McLean.
Hey, it's your girl Lisa Dene, and I want to tell you about a product that has changed my life. Rain Premium Sanitary Napkins. Rain products are infused with a Nobel Prize-winning material called graphene. It's the graphene strip that provides the various health benefits that can improve your quality of life during that time of the month. Listen, I've been very loyal to a certain brand of feminine products, but I've never experienced the results I get with Rain products. The difference is in the graphene strip. Using Rain products has totally eliminated the painful cramps I experience, and it can also help balance your body's pH, eliminate harmful bacteria, and help fight fatigue. Graphene moves heat away from your core to keep you cool and comfortable. Ladies, it's time to upgrade your feminine care with products that not only offer protection, but also improve your health and wellness. Place your order today and receive your premium sanitary napkins delivered directly to your door. Visit www.drfcare.com to make your purchase today. And don't forget to mention that your girl Lisa Dene and Stunner Radio sent you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Recipe with my special guest, Mr. Herman McLean. Now, we had a question in the chat and I want to definitely bring that up. I don't want to miss out. It says, let's see, where do you think the main disconnect occurs between Black men and women? And of course, I guess we're, talking about the area of mental health
Relationships.
and relationships. Yes.
Oh, in mental health and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It's a very
That's a
good
good
question.
question.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just say this precursor with that. This answer may be from a very my personal opinion.
Okay.
So with that being said, that is a very layered question.
Okay.
I think stereotypes on both Black men and women are unfair,
Yeah.
but somehow both men and women apply these stereotypes to both the opposite and then expect for understanding, right? So there's no, so all right, so to make it a better way of putting it, there's no accountability.
Okay. Okay.
There's no accountability. Right.
And
So
you
that, to
say
me, that's the biggest
on either part.
disconnect. On either
I'm
part.
sorry.
There's no
On either part.
accountability
Okay.
on either part.
Okay.
So it's very often that we blame the other for what we do instead of healing and addressing what we need to address. And instead of addressing it, we jump from situation to situation. And I find that what's common nowadays is that instead of people being alone and dealing what they need to deal with, they would rather get into a relationship and put the spotlight and blame on the other person.
Hmm.
And that's whether it be intimate relationship, friend relationship, work relationship, whatever relationship. I think instead of spending that alone time and working on yourself, a lot of times people would mask that by creating another relationship and then pointing out flaws in the other person. I think that's what we do within our community a lot. Is we're not accountable for ourselves.
Okay. Okay. So, what is your perspective regarding mental wellness among our youth? And I'm going to caveat that with, you've mentioned some things about dealing with youth currently. And, we know it's no secret that many minority communities deal with negative effects when it comes to law enforcement, to include our youth.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, again, what is your perspective regarding mental wellness among our youth, to include, is there anything that law enforcement can do to create that space where when you interacted with the youth, they feel able to express themselves about mental health issues, etc.? I know that was a lot.
Yeah, no, that was a lot. That was a lot, but that was a really good question and real layered too. But so mental health in our youth is super important. Obviously, the youth are our future, so those are the ones that will take over our society when we are long gone. But a lot of the mental health issues that I like I said, I see, I experience, I help, I assist with resolving, when they do come from they come from social media, right? So a lot of that, and I talk about this a lot in my presentations about secondary trauma, right? It's not trauma that you experience firsthand, but it's traumatic experience from online watching videos, right? Some from like World Star Hip Hop or Media Takeout or Fly Hide, or engaged in something that might be traumatic. Maybe, somebody, seeing something on anything on the internet, right? And these events have a dynamic impact on when kids do interact with people. So you remember there was a time, Dr. Finnie, where there was an influx of online videos of African American men getting pulled over by the police, and people were actually videotaping, and it's still happening today, right?
Yes.
That has a dynamic impact on when a child now, an 18-year-old or 19 or 21-year-old or anybody of color gets pulled over by police, because again, they revisit that traumatic experience that they've seen online. So even to identify and resolve these issues is of our utmost importance. It should be like critical for us to even sustain as people of color, but people in general, because the emotional stuff that they're intaking, and I say the children that are intaking, is far advanced than what we had. The amount of people that they have access to is far beyond what we had.
Yes.
Now, I can't really say and put anything on the law enforcement, but I can suggest to them to be more mindful of how they can sway cultural temperament by using excessive force and being unfair. And I know the system has been set up to be unfair, but at least treat the people with some type of dignity and respect. And that to me would go a long way. And it's not just words, but it has to be followed by action. So if the law enforcement or the law would be able to go as, show that they are trying to make changes and do make change, I think that will go a long way. But I think far and foremost, I think we need to be mindful of what our kids are watching and taking in on the internet and music and social media and all other platforms, gaming, because that has a dynamic impact on your mental health as well and your mental wellness. It's the same thing as what you eat has a dynamic impact on your health, and what you ingest, what you hear, what you see also has a dynamic impact on your mental wellness. So all of it's interconnected, and that's why we really have to be mindful of the mental health of our kids, is because they're the future.
Okay. I've heard you mention social media at least 3 times. Is this where the term social media anxiety comes to play?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what is that specifically? I mean, I can make an assumption, but if you would explain, I mean, I'm assuming some things, but feel free to just clarify.
Not a problem. We're all doing that, but to a certain extent. So social media anxiety is, again, anxiety induced by not a direct witness of an event, but it can be something that was witnessed on a social media platform. So like you seen somebody getting jumped or harassed or pulled over by a cop. Again, we talked about it. Again. Absolutely. So every time you get into the car, you feel something going on inside of you, right? It's anxiety, right? If a cop pulls behind you and you start to fidget and your palms start to sweat, it could be a video that you've seen or something that you've seen on the news months ago, years ago, but it brings back unfavorable like memories, and it causes you to act outside of yourself. So that's the type of social media anxiety that I'm talking about, because it's not just like Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
all TikTok. It's not just those. It's the social platforms like the news, CNN. Every time you turn on CNN or the news, chances are it's going to be a negative story.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of people feel some type of way about it.
So that brings me to another term that I saw you mention in one of your posts, and that is, what is reactive abuse?
Reactive abuse? And I would have to ask you, what post was that, Dr. Finnie? Because reactive abuse, I mean, I know about reactive attachment, which is a result of abuse.
Okay.
And so that goes with like attachment disorders, and that comes as a result of some abuse. So I know you have different attachment disorders, and those are sometimes the precursors of like our toxic relationships that we experience. Again, like I said, based on trauma, generational trauma sometimes. And I'm gonna speak from a man of color in relationships, typically with women of color, that we take on a lot of generational trauma, and we introduce those into relationships. How we react to the trauma is usually indicated in our attachment styles, right? So it's like a reactive attachment disorder. And in the reactive attachment disorder, there are different styles. Sometimes, the majority of the time, as a result of our trauma, we bring those unconsciously, subconsciously, we bring those into the relationship, and that adds to the toxicity of our relationships. Because then, based on that trauma and our attachment style, we react in certain ways that are not conducive to healthy relationships. Like sometimes we shut down. We don't want to communicate. Instead of we're too clingy, sometimes we're too distant. Okay, so that might have been what I referred to in one of my posts, but reactive attachment, that's a very real thing, and it definitely adds to the toxicity of our relationships today.
Okay. So why do you think it's so hard for us to tell people the truth of what we might be experiencing?
Good question. I think we have a difficult time separating or changing the mindset of, and I'll pose this to you, Dr. Finnie.
Okay.
Just because we have problems doesn't mean we are the problem. It just means we have problems.
Yes.
Right. So in our community, if we admit that we have problems, the mindset is that we are the problem. But that's not that's not it at all. That could be further from the truth. Because if you associate and you brand with the label, that means, oh, you're Finnie with the schizophrenia, or you're Finnie with the depression. And and that is a label that is not coincide with our pride, because we are very prideful people. And we will not admit that we have a problem. We will not admit that we are weak. We will not admit that we were vulnerable. And this is one of the main issues that prevent us from attaining the help that we need. So on a bigger level, we talked about it a little bit before, Dr. Finnie, but even the social media pushes a characterization of who we're supposed to be, and we fall to it sometimes. We get tricked, right? And even for the African American women, right? They say, oh, you're a strong Black female. But even in that title, that kind of takes away your vulnerability, because what if you don't want to be strong? What if you want to be vulnerable? What if you want to be weak at some time? So that kind of takes you and paints you in a corner of, okay, this is a person that has to be strong all the time, or the angry Black woman, right? Because she's angry all the time, right? So any way you react, you fall into that categorization of angry Black woman. So why would you want to be, like, if you don't have enough resolve, why would you want help? Why would you just like be the angry Black woman, right? Because this is what they painted you to be. Why don't you be that? And the same thing for men. Like, so if I'm a thug, so why not be that? Why not be a rapper? Why not just be a basketball? That's what they tell me. That's the only way I can make it out. Why not be that? So I think because of pride, I think because of ego, I think of fear, of being vulnerable. I think the pride as far as not attaining to a label, painting the picture of perfect, and I don't have a problem, you're the problem. I think those are some of the issues that prevent us from truly getting the help that we need. And I think once we get past that point of, and again, I said it, I am a person who has problems, but doesn't mean because I have problems that I am the problem. Once we get to that mindset of thinking and rationale, I think everybody will come to, sorry for lack of a better way to say it, but have a come to Jesus moment, be accountable, and start to address and heal the areas in that they need to go forward.
Okay. Well, that is a great stopping point. So let's take a quick break, and then we will be right back with the recipe.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, comedian actress Coca Brown. And I got to give a huge shout out to my girl, Dr. Stepheny Finnie, because she put me on. What? To the Jewel sanitary napkin. These babies are amazing. Not only are they good to me, they're good for me. Not only do they help with absorption, moisture control, and protection, because yes, sometimes I like to wear white, but these babies also have a great ingredient called graphene that helps with cramps. Huh? Are you kidding me? So you're telling me that I'm protected and I can control my moods a little bit? I love it. So please make sure you hit up my girl, Dr. Stepheny Finnie. They have a variety of sizes for every kind of flow, whether it's heavy, light, overnight, she got you. So make sure you hit up my girl, Dr. Stepheny Finnie, and get you some Jewel sanitary napkins today. I strongly endorse these, honey, especially if you're like me. You need all the help you can get for that time of the month. All right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the recipe with special guest Herman McLean, licensed mental health clinician and CEO of Community Outreach. Are you there?
How you doing, Dr. Finnie? Thank you for having me back.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So we have a little bit of time left. I wanted to get into a few more questions and ask you, how can we break the perception of therapy, particularly among, just the Black community? And I'll say that because, I'm just going to keep it real. A lot of times, if someone says that they need counseling or if they need therapy, it's like, oh, just go to church. And nothing's wrong with church. But I do believe that God put, licensed mental health clinicians, et cetera, here for us to be able to, talk to on another level. Prayerfully, they are also spiritual, but I believe that we need to also take that step when we need that type of help, when we need that type of counseling and therapy. We need to do that. So how can we get out of the perception of going to therapy or counseling? So
that's another great question, Dr. Finnie. How I introduce therapy to new clients and who've never been to therapy, I would say this to them. I would say therapy is like going to the gym, but for your mind and your emotions, right? And with the weight of the world pushing down on you, I can't expect for you not to know how to push the world back up, but through training, and building yourself up to the point where you can get that weight up. I think, I'm sorry, hold on one second. I
No
think
problem.
that would be the best way to describe therapy is, it's going to the gym for your mind and your emotions. How do we get people more acclimated and activated into therapy? I think, just opening and making the available resources available to those. Again, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? So the ability for me to have and be on this platform to talk about therapy is, I won't say it was good enough, but it's a great start to leaving the door open of availability for those that may not know that therapy is available for people of color like us, right?
Yes. Yes.
I can talk about it. I can keep it, 100% real about, you know, um, um, about real about, situations, and make it more palatable, because what we understand in school, what I learned in school, it's not really defined for us to translate it to people like us. So for me to be able to create different platforms where I can create and bring concepts to the forefront that we can chew on, think of, and kind of engage, so that we all can be better. I think those are the ways that we make therapy more comfortable for people like us. We talk about real issues. We keep it 100% real. We normalize therapy. We take out the stigma of associating bad with the label. But we just continue to create different platforms for people to promoters of positivity like me, yourself, and myself, of platforms for people to express and be catalysts of change. I think the more that people are awoke by the things that are happening and that hit home, that's when people start to look for therapy. But those that are willing and understanding, they see the temperament of what's happening in our culture. And those are the change makers that I hold accountable to going out and also promoting, services like this, services like the ones that you provide for bettering the community. Along with myself and yourself, we are the ones that are responsible for that part. Now, the people that receive the message, if they need the help, they also have to be accountable and receive that part as well. But it's a catch-22. I think it's both making the resources available, but it's also being accountable and taking advantage of the resources that are there. So
Yes.
I wish I had a better answer, but it's both. It's both us and them. It's the promoters of positivity, and it's the people that want to change for the positive, to get and engage in the services. So both.
No, I agree. I agree totally. Yes. Now, on that same thought, and this is a quote from you: healing is about changing who you are. Is not about changing who you are. Healing is about changing your relationship with who you are. Feel free to elaborate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's a deep quote.
Yes.
So healing is not about changing who you are, but it's about the relationship to who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hypothetically, I've experienced a traumatic event. Now, if I fail to acknowledge that traumatic event and I lived like that traumatic event never happened, that's changing who I am based on my setting and who I'm around, right?
Okay.
But if
Okay.
I acknowledge and accept that event as is, healed and grew from that event, that's my relationship to that traumatic event has changed. The relationship to who I am has changed because again, I didn't change or omit that event from my life, but I accepted, healed, and grew from it. So healing is not changing who you are, but the relationship to who you are.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, but you made the point that, you gave the example of, okay, if I had a traumatic experience and then I, kind of, I ignore it and, go on as if, it never happened. Like, I guess I kind of felt maybe that was a negative because maybe that's a coping mechanism. Maybe it's, in order for me to get through life, to move forward, I got to put that back here and act like it never happened. I know it happened, and I guess I'm kind of answering my own question because even when you do that, you got to come back and address it eventually. But for that temporary time, just for me to get through, I need to put that back there, act like that didn't happen, and just ignore it as best as I can. Again, I know it's going to come back up, but it seems like at the time, maybe that's what was needed just to get through that moment. I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm going
Absolutely.
somewhere.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Temporarily, right? But that's just temporarily. But, eventually you have to, look that person in the mirror and you have to heal because that's the person that you have to fall back in love with based on your traumatic experience, no matter what it is. If it, and I'm just assuming a traumatic experience, can be an experience in where you, hypothetically in this one, can make you fall out of love with yourself, right? And you become somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
But in order to fall in love with yourself again, you have to heal, right? So it's not about changing who you are, it's just changing your relationship to the problem and falling in love with who you are again, right? So it's becoming who you were before the traumatic event. I guess
I agree
it
now.
will be a better way to say it.
No, I agree now because hurt people hurt people.
That's right. That's right. And we talked about that too a little bit, Dr. Finnie, where again, what we like to do, I say we, I'm not assuming you, but what we like to do is before we resolve grief with ending a relationship, a lot of the time the terms is, to get over somebody, you got to get up under somebody else, or you got to get to another person to fill that spot, or you got a roster where you fill a spot with another spot. But where do you have time to heal? Where do you have time to grow as a person? Because the ultimate idea is you end a relationship, but then you want to become a better person in the next relationship, right? So you have to give yourself enough time and space to figure out who you are in the mix of things and things that you like. And we're always constantly growing and learning and adapting. So you have to be, keep your thumb on the pulse of who you are as a person. But when you get into a relationship, you lose sight of yourself because you become we. And it becomes now the focus is on us, keeping us together, but I'm not all the way whole. So how am I setting the stage for something that's healthy if I'm not even whole yet? I'm not even close to being whole. And a lot of the times that's what we do. It's hard to be accountable. So instead of the whole ass spotlight on yourself, you rather get into a relationship and then create a new spotlight. So it's we, but you still got the I. You still have to worry about yourself. And I think that's a common misconception that we have a lot of times about relationships in today's society, but overall generational. That's not just a thought that came now and today. That's something that's been ongoing that we thought is normal, but it's not normal.
Yeah, I agree.
It's crazy, Dr. Finnie, how um, um, being dysfunctional for such a long time, you think that that dysfunction becomes normal, right? But then when you take a step back, you notice that dysfunction wasn't right. And we got to be the promoters of change to kind of fix that, because there's a lot of things that you've experienced, I've experienced over our lifetimes, that we know that just wasn't right. It wasn't healthy, and we have to be the catalyst of change. So I thank you for even inviting me on this platform to share my thoughts about change. I really do appreciate that. And I just wanted to thank you. I didn't know how much time we had, but I wanted to say that before we got out of here.
Oh, thank you so much. We are actually almost out of time, but I will say this. I do believe that we need more Black mental health professionals. So thank you for what you do, because I think it makes a difference when, even in therapy, if that's something that you make the decision to do, when you can speak to someone that looks like you, it makes a difference. When you can vent, have counseling, therapy, I just think that just changes the dynamic in not just your perspective, but also in what you would be willing to share a lot of times.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that a lot of the times, and sorry for, it's sad to say, but there's a limited amount of Black male professionals that are practicing therapy in the field. The last time I checked, and that was before there was a popularity of therapists, it was like less than 1%. Less than 1% of Black male therapists that are providing therapy and assistance to people that are having mental health issues. I found that scary, but I've seen the need for it. And that kind of, propelled me to getting involved in the field as well, because there is a comfort level of talking to somebody that looks like you, that understands your plight, your struggles, your background, where you come from, lingo, language is really important. And just mindset of the temperament, cultural temperament. It's difficult to find someone that relates to you on that level. But I encourage everyone to, seek therapy, whether you need it or you don't. And you connect with the therapist that you feel comfortable with, because you're also interviewing your therapist as well. You know what I mean? So, I encourage everybody that, if is mindful of what's going on, whether you think you need it or you don't, just go seek therapy. Just go seek therapy for a trial run. And if you like it, continue to go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. I also want to thank everyone for watching or listening, for taking time out of their day to connect on The Recipe. Again, thank you, licensed mental health clinician and CEO of Community Outreach International, Mr. Herman McLean. Everyone, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this segment. And now I'm going to allow singer, songwriter, television personality, and founding member of Sisters with Voices, Lily from SWV, to provide her endorsement of RAIN, previously known as Jewel Feminine Care. See you next time on The Recipe, as I bring you all of the ingredients for living your best life.
And the packaging, it says Jewel on it. And she sent me so many different, it's for moderate flow, heavy flow. Hold on. And this was my favorite.
That is my favorite.
I can always appreciate an overnight, but what I was really impressed by was the length, how long it was,
and how it's not as thick.
If you guys still get those healthy friends, sometimes that thing could just be out of control and never do what you asked it to do. It'd be all over the place. But honestly, I had absolutely no problems at all. And I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate this product so good, because a lot of people, you know, they want to send you stuff, and it's like, okay, you know, you want to believe in everybody, but everybody's product is not a good product, especially something when it comes to feminine hygiene and sanitary this and you got to be very careful, because sometimes, you know, whatever the stuff is made with, it don't always agree with your body chemistry. But I had absolutely no problems, and I wouldn't even say this if I didn't mean it. I gave the girls in my podcast, they use it. My podcast member, she don't even use sanitary napkins. She's like a tampon girl. Mm-hmm. But she really appreciated this, and I thought, you know, I have to tell you this. I couldn't wait to get on here to tell you this. So for everybody that's on here that's still going through them, getting those monthly visitors, please support Dr. Finnie's business. I tried it myself, and I loved it.
Wow.
Thank you.